guys will not be visible on, okay, just for whatever concern you might have there. All right, Mr. Duane, go to the statements.
Thank you, Judge. November 17th, 2020. A day that was supposed to be a normal day at Primary Pediatrics on Lakeview Road. A day full of children with runny noses, getting their shots, and hopefully a sticker or a sucker on the way out. It was anything but an ordinary day. That morning, Karter Ambrose, 2 years old, was rushed in a diaper and a wet t-shirt with a pulse that was rapidly disappearing. He was cold to the touch. The bottoms of his feet were white. His eyes were rolled back in his head. Primary Pediatrics did what they could. But they're a pediatrician's office. They're not an emergency room. They're not EMS. They performed CPR, life-saving measures for that little toddler until EMS got there. EMS took him to Peach County Atrium, where he was pronounced dead. And Karter had issues breathing. He was on medicine. There was a breathing treatment sometimes that he needed. And at first glance, this looked like a child that had succumbed to this breathing issue until the autopsy was performed. The cause of death in this case is blunt force injury to the abdomen, causing a lacerated liver. This is a homicide. No doubt about it. And that weekend, Karter was with his mom, the defendant. Now, his biological father, Kadeem, who will testify, they're not together anymore. So Mom, the defendant, picked up Karter Friday from daycare. He wasn't injured. He seemed okay. Maybe that evening he said, "My tummy hurts." My tummy hurts. But other than that, there was nothing going on. The daycare people are going to come. They want to testify that Karter was fine. There were no injuries to him. And then the next day, Saturday, Karter and the defendant went to the defendant's grandfather's house. And again, he was fine, happy, playing. Typical 2-year-old boy. Then the defendant had Karter by herself until Sunday evening when her new boyfriend, Kiyon, arrived. You were going to hear that from that Sunday evening until the day that Karter died, he was having stomach pain. He was throwing up. It wasn't until he went lifeless that anybody did anything to get that little boy any help at all. It would have helped to have called Karter's father. He's a firefighter and works in EMS. But the defendant wouldn't let him speak to his child. Over the phone, wouldn't let him see him, via FaceTime, nothing. It is only when Karter is at Primary Pediatrics and is on death's door that she finally tells Kadeem, "Get here. Karter's not doing well." According to the medical examiner, whom you will hear from, he had multiple blunt force injuries. And when we say multiple, we don't mean 2 or 3. He had quite a few to his abdomen. He also had injuries to his genitalia, an injury to his head. He had a massive laceration to his liver, as well as an injury to his pancreas. Evidence of repeated blows to this child. You are also going to hear, you're going to hear from two people. One who's retired medical examiner, and the other was the former chief medical examiner at the time. And that is the time of death. Excuse me, that is the time with which the injuries could be inflicted, or were inflicted, I should say. 1 to 3 days prior to the death of the child. And you're going to hear from them. And that time frame is the time frame that this defendant, Kiyon Benton, had sole access and sole control over this child. Now, one thing you're going to notice, because I've said Kiyon Benton, he's not sitting over there. It's Kianna by herself. His charges are still pending. There's no deals with him. All right? They're just separated for the time being. That's it. During this trial, you will have the urge, I suspect, to try to pick who did it. Which one beat him? Did they both beat him? Sorry to tell you that I do not have the answer to every question that you are going to have in this trial. But the testimony that you are going to hear is that the beating or beatings that this child sustained only when the defendant and the boyfriend or the boyfriend had custody. Sole access to this child. They are parties to each other's crimes. The case is entirely circumstantial. There's no video recording, there's no confession, there's no DNA evidence. But you are going to hear from a number of witnesses. You're also going to observe, see, watch, hear that this defendant had multiple interactions with law enforcement. She had a conversation with law enforcement while waiting outside the apartment as law enforcement executed a search warrant on the apartment, or I should say searched the apartment pursuant to her consent. But there were 3 other statements that she gave to police, and not one time did she point the finger at Kiyon. Mother of a child who's been beaten and died of a lacerated liver. She doesn't want to do that. But she talks to people. She comes up with all sorts of stuff. Jumped off the bed or the couch. You're going to hear why that's not how this injury occurred. Had diabetes. Or you're not going to hear much of a reason at all. CPR did it. Handlebars of a bike did it. You could think of a number of issues, but you'll hear GBI experts tell you why this is a homicide and not an accident, not the result of some medical condition. The defendant is absolutely guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of murdering her child. But what is reasonable doubt? Now we're going to come back at the end of this. The judge is actually going to read you a bunch of law. She's going to define reasonable doubt. Right? That is a doubt for which a reason can be given. Right? In the mind of an honest juror seeking the truth. And you're going to have a lot of pieces, circumstantial pieces. The biggest of which is these injuries occurred when only this defendant and her boyfriend had access to you. she killed her child. I'm going to prove it to you. The evidence is going to bear it out. Thank you.